What is up, Custom Grains fans? Welcome back on this week's episode on how to create an epoxy fishtail charcuterie board. What I always try to do is find the most unique piece of lumber in my lumber pile. So here is some curly walnut, and right now I'm just marking around the acrylic template guide from Crafted Elements, and then using my Milwaukee jigsaw to cut out the excess. Once I cut off the excess, I then go ahead and place the acrylic guide along with some painter's tape and some CA glue. Basically, in my experience, CA glue and painter's tape is the most cost-effective way on adhering a template guide to a workpiece. Some people use double-sided stick tape, some people use duct tape. I just prefer this method just because it's the most cost-effective and easiest in my opinion. I have experienced with double-sided tape, they'd leave some adhesive on it, and then you have to just sand the adhesive off the workpiece or the acrylic guide. And for people that don't know what CA glue is a type of super glue that once you do spray an activator with it, it almost instantly hardens just to speed up the curing time of just normal super glue. Now I bring the workpiece over to my router table and I use a flush cut router trim bit. What that does is that it just cuts off the excess that I did not cut with my jigsaw. If you're doing any flush cutting, you always want to tend to buy a spiral bit instead of a straight cut bit, just because a straight cut bit does tend to tear out on end grain workpieces. Now here I'm using a fishtail charcuterie board silicone mold made by Crafted Elements. I am an affiliate with them, so if you do use code CG10, you do save $10 off your order. Next step is to pour the epoxy. Here I'm using Resin Art Flow. It is their deep pour, so it's 3-to-1 ratio mixture. After I mix the epoxy for 1 minute, I then add the color or pigment. Today I'm using Royal Gold by Meyspring. I am affiliated with them as well. CG10 will save you 10% off your order. So thank you very much for Meyspring for also being affiliated with me. After I'm done mixing, I wait about 1 to 2 minutes to let all the air bubbles rise to the top, and then I just use a torch to pop the remaining air bubbles. Here I'm just pouring the epoxy into the silicone mold. You want to do it nice and slow to limit as much air bubbles as you can, but obviously, as you can see on the bottom left hand corner, there are some very small air bubbles left over. After you pour it, you're going to want to weigh down your workpiece just because the wood does tend to float with the epoxy. So here I just have a thing of HDPE on the workpiece and then just my Milwaukee battery as a weight. And then I'm just stirring it up to make it look all fancy. Now after 4 days here in the Minnesota climate, the epoxy is fully cured and hardened and is ready to demold. Best part about these molds is that they're super easy to demold. And then you can reuse the mold, of course, later on after you clean it. Now to get rid of the excess epoxy on the workpiece, I just use my dual drum sander. You could plane this off or just use a hand sander, sand it. Here I'm just water popping. So what water popping does is that it just raises the wood fibers, and then you're just gonna wanna knock those wood fibers down by sanding again. For all my cutting boards and charcuterie boards, I do like to put an 1/8 inch round over on the sides. Me personally, I just think it feels better when you're handling the item. And since everybody loves sanding, here's me sanding the charcuterie board one more time, just to get rid of the raised wood fibers from all the water popping. And then I am using 400 grit on my Festool Rotex sander. And then here's just an action shot of what the finished board will look like after I apply my food grade mineral oil and beeswax blend. Just look how satisfying this shot is. After I wipe off the excess of the food grade finish, I then present you the final result. Thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful day.